Chance196 here with another end of the year video. This time we have the top 5 most disappointing figures of the year. So obviously I did a top 10 of my favorite figures, and now we're going to do top 5 of my least favorite figures. This is a video that I do every year. It's like the 3rd or 4th year I'm doing it. And so very excited. So, when I first started doing these videos, I had a lot of trouble, coming up with figures because, when you buy a figure, you expect to like it. So typically, I don't have too many figures that I'm that disappointed with. However, last year and this year, it was quite easy to find figures for this countdown, which just kind of means that, Hasbro in particular is kind of slipping when it comes to making figures because it's getting easier and easier to make this list. So overall, I'm excited to do this. This is a fun, countdown for me. It's something I don't usually think about, so it does give me the opportunity to actually think about what figures I didn't like or were disappointed with. So I take everything into consideration: the paint, sculpt, articulation, accessories, my personal experience with it, as well as the price. So there you go. Let's get started with this. Alright, so taking the 5th spot on my least favorite figures of the year, we have Ultron. This is the Build-A-Figure from the basically Ant-Man wave of 2015. So yeah, overall, really didn't enjoy this Build-A-Figure very much. It was one that I was super excited for. I love villains. I love Build-A-Figures, so having them, kind of meet is just fantastic, especially a movie villain. And overall, it fell flat. The design, the sculpt is pretty decent. Articulation is alright, a little hindered in the hips, but pretty decent all in all. The problem with this guy is paint. He fails on paint. There's some nice silver on the front. As you can see, there's some parts with some good silver. Unfortunately, you have like sections of silver with sections of gray. Like the chest is silver, but then the crotch area and thighs are gray. The hips are silver. The knee joint is gray. The top of the legs are silver, and then the feet are gray. And then the biceps and shoulders are silver, and the arms and hands are gray, and the head's silver. So it just looks like a mash of different of gray and silver. It just doesn't make sense. If they were more intertwined, it would look a lot better, but they obviously just wanted to save money by just not painting some of the parts and keeping them gray. So overall, it looks pretty bad. I don't like the bright red that they used. Wish that they could have put a little bit of wash into that to make it not look so just like a bright red stripes on him. And then where this guy completely fails is the back, where they just decided we don't need any color on the back, right? So overall, this is the epitome of lazy Hasbro, in my opinion. Overall, really disappointed, and I like the character a lot, and I always build the Build-A-Figures, so that's why I got him, but overall, the figure itself is incredibly disappointed, and I did not see the unpainted back coming on this figure. I really didn't expect that, so super disappointed, and overall, definitely deserving a spot on this top 5 worst figures of the year. Alright, that 4th spot is going to go to the Elite Series Star Wars General Grievous figure. Overall, I love the Elite Series, and this was one of my most anticipated Elite Series of the year. I was super excited to get it, and unfortunately getting it was quite disappointing. The figure itself is quite nice, the sculpt is very good, and he's much bigger than most of the Elite Series figures. They could have just given him 2 hands, they gave him 4, which was awesome, and his cape is wonderfully sculpted and painted. The problems with this guy are all quality issues, basically. The cape is just too big, even though it's sculpted super nicely. It's just way too big on him. You can't put it on him and make it look natural without it being like completely away from his body. His arms on mine, one of them doesn't stay in very much at all, which is definitely a shame. The thigh joints are a little loose, which makes him hard to stand, and then just his feet design in general makes him very hard to stand too. Plus, he has die cast in him, so he makes him a little heavier as well, which just adds to the fact that he has trouble standing. Really annoying figure. He just can't stand up. All of my Elite Series figures I display off of their bases, except for this guy. He's the one that needs a base, and even with the base, sometimes he falls over. So overall, it was a completely disappointing figure. Really disappointed about it in general. I do have a second one in package, and I'm so glad I do, because I really did not want to take the one that I have on my shelf and put it on the desk here to do the video, because would have been a pain to, get him to stand here and then have to put him back and get him to stand over there. So I'm really happy that I hit a mint one to show. Overall, as a in-package figure, he's fantastic. But when you take him out of the package, he is definitely a weak spot in the Elite Series collection. Alright, in that spot number 3 here, we have the the Star Wars 3 and 3/4 inch figures. So overall, I'm kind of bundling them all in as a toy line in general. Sometimes I do that just because the toy line is disappointing. These were quite disappointing. Their sculpts are pretty nice, they come with, decent accessories, but they have no articulation. I mean, just swivel hips, swivel shoulders, and a ball jointed head. So overall, you have the basic articulation, which is just disappointing. And, I'd be fine with that if they also had a line of articulated 3 and 3/4 inch figures, which they do, but they're Walmart exclusives. They're very limited on characters. Most of them are just repacks from other series, and there's only 5 characters from the new movie that they've made. And then on top of all of that, they're super expensive. They're $12.83 a piece, which is so much more expensive than a 3 and 3/4 inch figure should cost. They used to cost $8, but a couple years ago they went up to $10. So to have them jump $280 in price just to get a figure that you should already have is super disappointing. So overall, the 3 and 3/4 inch line is just really disappointing from Hasbro, and it's such a shame because they've done so many good characters. The only redeeming factor about them, which is why they're not further down on this list or higher up on this list basically, is the fact that they have really nice package designs, which is why I buy them. I buy them to keep them mint because their packages look stunning. I really do love them. So because of that, I'm not putting them at like number 1 on this list, but they do still deserve to be on it. Alright, and second on this list is the Marvel 3 and 3/4 inch series, basically, in particular, Bishop and Vulture. So overall, Hasbro seems to just really be hating on 3 and 3/4 inch figures, as we saw from Star Wars, just at the third spot here. So now with number 2 being more 3 and 3/4 inch figures from Hasbro, it is definitely a shame. The Marvel Universe series used to be my all-time favorite series of toys, years ago, and now it's become basically my least favorite. So overall, these figures are really disappointing. Character-wise, they're awesome. Bishop is a great character, and he was just in a movie too, so I should have really been excited for his figure. Vulture is a figure that I've been waiting for them to do forever now, because I wanted to complete the Sinister Six, and I love Spider-Man villains. Both of these, though, are quite disappointing. Head sculpts are nice. They have a couple nice details on them. Overall, they're incredibly plain, though. Their colors are super dull. They're just like a dark blue and a bright yellow for Bishop, and then just a bright green for Vulture. There's no shading whatsoever or variation on the definition of the color either, so they look like cheap toys in general, and then altogether they have a bad articulation compared to what we used to get. They do have ankle rockers, which is quite nice, but they are completely lacking on wrists and torso articulation, which is definitely a disappointment. And then with the Vulture in particular, where he has his pegs, where he can peg into his wings or peg his wings into his body, is a very awkward place. The only time that they look good is when his arms are completely up, which just makes him look strange. You can't have him where his arms are just kind of to the side and have him look nice. Plus, they don't even stay in. They're absolute crap. I do just use a rubber band to rubber band them on his back, and that's how I display them. Overall, these are both super disappointing, and a once great toy line has really been destroyed over the past couple of years. So overall, very disappointing, and I'm very much limiting which figures I purchase from the 3 and 3/4 inch Marvel toy line. So overall, quite disappointing. Alright, and my number 1 most disappointing figure of the year goes to the Marvel Now Iron Man from the Marvel Legends Hulkbuster Build-A-Figure wave. Overall, I knew this wave was suffering just in general. Most of the figures were just not too good. A lot of them were just, repaints or just nothing interesting. And that was because they needed to save the money to go for the Build-A-Figure being so large and so unique and great, really. So overall, because of that, the figures did suffer for the awesome Build-A-Figure. This was the one that suffered the most, in my opinion. This was one that I didn't want whatsoever. The only reason I bought it was for the Build-A-Figure piece, and it didn't impress me or lift my spirits at all about the figure. Overall, I really don't like it at all. It's done in black with gold highlights, very minor gold highlights, and then a couple of red details. nothing special. You really can't see, the details are so minute, and they really picked just an obscure armor that I had trouble finding pictures of online, really just so that they could save on money with the paint, because it's an armor that doesn't require any paint on the back. So they just could do absolutely nothing on the back here, which is such a shame. The circles, the red kind of repulsors, those could have been really cool, but they didn't sculpt them in. They just painted mere circles all over his body, and didn't paint them whatsoever. And then to top it all off, this is just a complete repaint of an old figure. This figure came out in 2010 from the Iron Man 2 line, and it's a comic book armor, but they repainted it onto a movie Iron Man figure because they were too cheap to sculpt a new armor. So overall, this figure sucks. It's a repaint of something that shouldn't be repainted. It should be a comic book armor, but instead they just repainted a movie one. Looks terrible, very limited on paint, and then sculpting is just, it's not what it should be. It should be a comic book armor. This is not the armor it should be. It basically has the colors from the comic, but on a movie armor, which just doesn't make sense, and it's just Hasbro's laziness altogether. So overall, this year produced many great figures, but at the same time, it also produced a few quite bad ones. Here are the bad ones that I purchased, and yeah, I don't regret buying any of these. I mean, Bishop, I guess I haven't done anything with him, so I wouldn't mind of never getting him, actually. But everybody else I don't regret buying, except for the Marvel Now Iron Man. I don't want that figure at all, but I need the Build-A-Figure piece. So overall, disappointing figures altogether. They all fail on some aspect, and all are really disappointing and unfortunate. So there you go. I'd love to hear you guys' opinions on the figures that I've chosen, or chose, and I'd love to hear what you guys, what your worst figures of the year are. That would be really interesting to hear. So thanks so much for watching.